Do you know me as Martin Luther King Jr.? Perhaps you've heard my name in speeches or in history books. But before I became a symbol of equality and peace, I was just Michael, a young man with a dream. Let me take you on a journey, one you'll only hear on Hear and Reflect, a story of courage, perseverance, and the fight for justice that continues to inspire the world. And at the end, I'll share with you some lessons I learned along the way that could change your life.
Don't miss out. Subscribe now and be one of the first to join Hear and Reflect. Unforgettable stories await you.
I was born in Atlanta, Georgia, on January 15, 1929, into a deeply religious family. My father was a pastor, and my mother was a talented organist. Growing up, I learned the power of faith and the value of education, but I also encountered the harsh realities of racial segregation. I faced discrimination firsthand, but it was my belief in God and in the principles of justice and equality that kept me moving forward. I went to Morehouse College, where I first became interested in social justice. After completing my seminary studies at Crozer Theological Seminary, I went on to Boston University, where I earned my doctorate in theology. During this time, I was deeply influenced by the teachings of Gandhi, particularly his commitment to nonviolent resistance. I understood that true change could not come through violence, but through peaceful struggle, patience, and love. In 1955, when I was just 26 years old, Rosa Parks was arrested for refusing to give up her seat on a segregated bus in Montgomery, Alabama. This act of defiance sparked a wave of protest. Soon I was chosen to lead the Montgomery bus boycott. The boycott was not easy. We walked miles in the rain, faced threats, and endured hardship. But after 381 days, the Supreme Court ruled that segregation on public buses was unconstitutional. This was a monumental victory and the beginning of a long journey toward justice. Over the years, I became more involved in the civil rights movement, helping to organize protests, sit-ins, and marches. One of the most important events in my life came in 1963, when I led the March on Washington for Jobs and Freedom. It was there, on the steps of the Lincoln Memorial, that I delivered my most famous speech, "I Have a Dream." In that speech, I spoke of a future where people would not be judged by the color of their skin, but by the content of their character. I dreamt of a world where justice and equality were not distant hopes, but everyday realities. In 1964, my work was recognized when I became the youngest person ever to receive the Nobel Peace Prize. However, despite this recognition, the struggle was far from over. In the following years, I continued to speak out against injustice, whether it was racial segregation, poverty, or the Vietnam War. My opposition to the Vietnam War in particular was controversial. I believed that the war diverted resources and attention away from the pressing needs of the poor and oppressed, both in the United States and abroad. In 1965, I helped lead the Selma to Montgomery marches, which were instrumental in the passage of the Voting Rights Act. This act was a turning point in the struggle for civil rights, ensuring that African Americans had the legal right to vote without facing discriminatory barriers. However, as I continued my fight for justice, I became increasingly aware that our work was far from done. In 1968, I turned my attention to economic inequality, focusing on the plight of the poor, especially poor African Americans. I was in Memphis, Tennessee, supporting a sanitation workers' strike when I was tragically assassinated on April 4, 1968, at the age of 39. I was cut down in the prime of my life, but my message remains. The fight for justice, equality, and peace continues. We must remember that love, nonviolence, and the courage to stand up against injustice lead us to a better world. The dream is still alive in each of us who dares to speak out for what is right, who stands against hate, and who believes that a better, more just world is possible. I've lived a life of struggle, triumph, and unwavering belief in justice. Let me share with you lessons from my journey, in the hope that they inspire and guide you. First, never underestimate the power of love and nonviolence. I faced hatred, bombings, threats, and imprisonment, yet I chose to respond with love, not revenge. Hatred only fuels division, but love has the power to unite and heal. As I once said, darkness cannot drive out darkness. Only light can do that. Hate cannot drive out hate. Only love can do that. Second, Courage is not the absence of fear, but the strength to act despite it. I was often afraid for my life, my family, and the people I led. But I learned that fear should not paralyze us. Courage comes when we stand firm for what is right, even when the odds seem impossible. If I had let fear dominate, we would never have marched in Montgomery, Selma, or Washington. Third, faith in a better tomorrow is what keeps us moving forward. I held on to my dream of a just and equal society, even when the road was long and the setbacks many. That dream sustained me, and it can sustain you. Never stop dreaming, for dreams shape the reality we build. Fourth, justice is a journey, not a destination. The Civil Rights Act of 1964 and the Voting Rights Act of 1965 were victories, but they were not the end. I realized that the fight against inequality, poverty, and war would continue long after me. You too must understand that real change takes time and persistence. Keep working, step by step, to create a fairer world. Lastly, know that we are all interconnected. My fight for civil rights was not just for African Americans, it was for humanity. Injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. When you act, remember that your actions ripple out, impacting lives far beyond your own. My hope is that you will carry these lessons forward. Stand for love, act with courage, dream without fear, and work tirelessly for justice. And always remember, the arc of the moral universe is long, but it bends toward justice if we make it bend.
If you've made it this far, it means you've listened to the full story, and we're grateful for that. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button to be one of the first subscribers to our Hear and Reflect channel, where we tell unforgettable stories. Hit like and share your thoughts in the comments. Our journey has just begun, and your presence makes it special.